Okay, so it's almost 20 past. Erin, do you have anything to say other than the chat first, or are we good to go? Perfect. Welcome, everybody, at this open personalization with Apache Unomi and Mautic workshop. The two tutors or teachers for this workshop are Frederick Waters and myself. This workshop will be about personalization. So how do you change the content of your website, or at least like some of the things on your website, on the Drupal website, in combination with specific contexts. It could be that the context is a country. It could be that the context is a campaign. So that's what we're going to do here with open technologies or open source technologies like Apache Unomi. And then also we're going to connect it to Mautic in this workshop. Mautic is a marketing automation open source software, which allows you to convert or to capture the leads for your website and then actually get them into an engaging marketing automation flow. If you've never heard of any of the two technologies, that's fine. The only thing we will require you in this workshop is to have a local Drupal site. Even if you don't have any setup or any of that kind, that's totally fine. We're using very, very minimal requirements. So hopefully everyone is able to follow as we go. If you're not able to follow, please add something in the chat. Frederick and myself are here to help. So we can actually help you either like in the chats, or we can also allow you to share your screen so you can actually help everybody else. I hope people are able to share their screen, asking for the screen share. If not, maybe Erin, is that a possibility that you can enable? But that I'm not entirely sure how that could work. Worst case, I'll show everything on my computer as well on how to follow. So that's a bit of the intro. So far, so good. So then let's get started and get some context. So what is personalization? Personalization is the actual understanding that the global market, as in the globalization of the digital world, doesn't necessarily mean that there's only one audience. Making one website for the whole world to see, that doesn't really like stroke with the reality. People in the US or even in different states of the US could be very different or could perceive your information very differently than people from countries within Europe or anywhere else. Then the question is, okay, once you start to do this personalization, how do you measure that success? I won't go very deep into that topic. If you want to know more about that, in the beginning of the week, Monday, there was a session from my colleague that goes deeper into the marketing details of why personalization and what exactly do you want to achieve with personalization. I'll do a very short demo, and then we actually go into the do-it-yourself workshop, okay? And then we'll have some more closing words, maybe into advanced topics, depending on how much time we have left. If you're following so far, please leave something in the chat so I know that you're active and that I know that you're happy to follow along with this workshop, okay? It's always a bit weird when you're not seeing faces in something like this, but okay. Let's take a look at a little video. And this video is a product page from our company, but this is just a product that we've built with Apache Unomi, and it's more like a concept video. Okay? So what do we actually want to achieve? Someone comes in from Google or any other inbound channel like Instagram or LinkedIn or any other social network. This person finds your website and actually comes on this website. This person is anonymous. This is cached by Cloudflare or Varnish or anything else. Perfect, this person is taking a look. And you can see at the bottom that the customer did a platform, in this case, Unomi. is already capturing all these events. And so that's exactly what this is about. It's actually capturing all the clicks, all the movements on the site, very, very similar to what Google Analytics is doing. With the key difference is that Google Analytics is free, but it's not your data. You're actually paying with the data of your own customers by making Google Analytics smarter, but you're not able to really use all of that data in a way that you actually want to maybe use it. In any case, this customer data platform, Apache Unomi, detected this is an explorer. The person goes to the website and fills in her details, and that was a Mautic form. So now we have a conversion. We only detected that this person is the explorer. We didn't really do anything with it, but we did have a conversion. So that's great. We know the intention of this person, and we know who the person is, all within the consent frameworks of any kind of regulation. So we assume that's all complied to. Now, you have a profile of this person, and that's exactly a customer data platform is for customer data. So it has profiles. That's also what Unomi has. So now let's put this information to good use. We actually now, when this person comes back on the website, and maybe you missed it, but the front page looks a bit different. The block for subscribing to the workshop is on the top left. And before, in the original website, this wasn't there. We know that she likes to explore, so we're not really pushing e-commerce items to her. We're pushing actually more information and actually more engagement towards this person in order to really understand, okay, this is where this person is on her journey, and maybe ultimately she gets or becomes a fan of our product, and she might buy items. Also, the newsletter, because we know she's an explorer, we know how she came in, is tailored to that exact same profile. So that's what we're trying to achieve. We're trying to achieve a customer journey that is tailored to some persona. It could also be a one-on-one journey, but in this case, we're trying to make it as a persona. So that's more or less how such a journey looks like. People come in from social media, go for a blog or a website, maybe interact with a chatbot. They go to a website and an email. But this is what we have today. The websites usually are very static. Emails are usually very static. People, or many companies, are still sending newsletters once a month, but that's not really personal. Okay. So what we're trying to do in the green items of the website and the email, and that's also what this workshop is about, is let's personalize those two items to at least make that end user, the customer, feel that he or she is heard. Okay. It's not about being creepy. It's about actually being closer to a person, and then go further. So to recap, this person was Sophia. We went into an acquisition stage. So maybe you have UTM parameters that came into the query URL. Then we have activation because she or clicked somewhere. We have conversion. She actually entered her email address. And then we have nurturing because we're having a journey with this person based on email addresses. Okay, so this could be for just one persona, but we have many more. If you want to know more about that, I'll refer back to the presentation of Lane. With Unomi, you're actually gathering lots of events and lots of maybe sessions and profiles. But it also allows you to do data analysis on this data to really get pattern recognition into that customer data platform. So I won't do or talk too much about that. This is something that's actually specific to our company. So that's out of scope for this workshop, but adding AI to something like a customer data platform, it sounds cool, right? It actually is also pretty cool. Now, next step, also very short, how to measure personalization. You could put it all in a Google Sheet or an Excel, but it doesn't take anything into account of this person. Right? This Sophia doesn't really reflect here. No personas are reflecting here. So you don't really know how your website or your brand is actually reflecting with those personas. So we have to add like another metric or another dimension. The same is valid for Hotjar. Very interesting to understand where everybody clicks. But as I told you before, it's not about everybody. It's about all these personas. So also here, we have to add specific dimensions. And in the words of Unomi, let's talk about segments, okay? Also in Google Analytics, same problem. Google Analytics thinks everybody is exactly the same. You have these conversions and you have these goals, but we are missing these dimensions or these segments. So what can you do? As soon as you can couple Unomi or the segments that actually come back from Unomi with Google Analytics, you can add dimensions to Google Analytics and then understand what is the conversion ratio of this specific segment, which you create. For example, this Sophia was an Explorer segment. And then you can try to tweak and optimize your personalization based on these conversion ratios. What happened before in other personalization softwares is, okay, you put an image here, and if someone clicks on the image, or maybe then makes a purchase, yeah, then the image is successful. Well, it doesn't really work in that literal way. So I really prefer to take a look at the actual goals that you defined for your website in Google Analytics or in softwares like Matamo or any other metric tool that you have, and then add those personas, those dimensions, those segments. Those three words are exactly the same, at least in this context, to measure those successes. Now, I'm just going to show you a very quick demo on what this looks like, okay? So if, let me open up this page. Here we have just a test page of the Drupal site. And you can see, and it's in Dutch, but I'll explain, doesn't really matter. It says, come and work at Drupal and stay in the comfort of your own house. Now, let's take a look how that looks like if I go in incognito. And I accept all the cookies. And let's refresh. Let's see. Okay. Yeah, it took a little while, but it's normally you go into a website, you make like a little journey and you visit some pages. But here, the customer data platform actually detected that I'm based in Ghent. So now actually it says, come and work in our office in Ghent. You can see how this is different from this context, which actually says, come and work at Drupal and stay in the comfort of your own house. Now, I'm going to just show you what the difference is. You can see this is come and work in our office. This is come and work remotely. The only thing I'm doing here is I'm switching context from the Unomi module. And then based on that, the Drupal site actually behaves very differently. In the workshop, that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to go into Drupal. We're going to create some content. And we're only going to show that content based on specific properties of the end visitor. Why is this so complex? You could say, oh, I'm able to do this with rules or with anything within Drupal itself. Well, that's true, but it's also not true. The problem space is that if you're actually in a global market, you most likely will use something like caching. Either you use a varnish caching, either you use Cloudflare, maybe Akamai, anything else, and then you won't even touch Drupal because the URL and the context is always the same. So in this case, we made sure that Drupal understands the context from Unomi changed because segments came in. So then I also have to react differently. This will become a lot more clear in the workshop itself. What we're going to do is we have the Umami website, and we're going to add some blocks here and there and make sure that either they appear or disappear based on specific context. So far, so good? Everybody still following along?
In the crowd, so it's good.
Yeah. Yeah, I see like almost 40 people following and lots of yeses, so that's good. Okay. So that was a very, very short demo. I have sessions with lots of like longer demos, but I wanted you to have the feel of this stuff. So that's the key part of this presentation or this workshop. So what we did is we captured online behavior. You saw that. We discovered intent, and the very basic intention, or maybe the very basic segment was, are you in Ghent or not in Ghent? And then we personalized the website. Now, what is Apache Unomi? Apache Unomi is an open source customer data platform, and it's pronounced as Unomi. It's kind of like a word joke, and it's a Java software which was promoted to like a main project at the Apache Foundation, coming from a company, or the main sponsorship actually came from a company called Jahaya. Jahaya is a DXP company, digital experience platform company, but mainly Java-based. So they, yeah, yes, indeed, Michael. It's a funny joke, eh? You know me. But they spend a lot of effort in making this open, and which is great. The only tricky part is that this is a fully headless CDP, which means there is no interface at all. Similar like Apache Solr, it's really, really hard to actually make it successful within Drupal because there is no interface to make segments. There's nothing at all. It's just a REST interface. But it has consent management, so you can store if someone actually said yes to your cookies or no to your cookies, or even to the categories. But it requires quite some work. And then we have this image again. So after we've done all of that, we now have website personalization, but we can also actually send those segments from Unomi into our marketing automation funnel so that we know in the emails, this person maybe is from Ghent, or this person is looking for flower pieces. Like, you can go really far. Okay. So let's go to the workshop. Friedrich, can you share maybe the link to the slides? What I've done is, or what we've done, is that we divided this in 5 simple steps. Okay. Those of you that want to follow those steps, I'll answer the Q&A questions in a bit. Let's go through the workshop first. But
I'll keep track of the questions.
Yeah, that's great. So go to the document. Go to this slide 26, and then let's follow along together. Okay. I see lots of people already in the slides. What I've done is I'm using the built-in Drupal server, or the server capability within Drupal core, to actually start up a project. And so if you follow these commands, you should be able to see this Unomi, or this is complex, Umami website with the modules already in the code base. They won't be enabled yet. I'm going to wait a little bit until at least like 10 people, maybe 15 people are ready. And please let us also know when you're ready.
If everything works fine, you paste the command into your terminal and it should work right away. The only requirement is that you have PHP.
Yeah, you should just have PHP and Composer. Ideally Composer 2, because that will be a lot quicker, but it should work with Composer 1. Maybe in the meantime, Mikkel, I think that's your first name. Sorry if that's your last name. You have a question about, does your Unomi module support tokens? And is there a Google Tag Manager for the Unomi tag? Can you maybe explain me a bit what you're looking for when you're asking for the token support? And also maybe in the meantime, I'm going to explain you a bit how this workshop works in terms of the technology. We've set up a managed Unomi on our end, which has authentication that we took care of. That's part of the service that Dropsolid does, but it's a plain Unomi. So there's nothing that you will interact with. that is not really Unomi itself. The other thing that we've set up is a managed Mautic, but that's also plain Mautic. The only thing that is a bit specific to what Dropsolid provides is the tracking script, because it's a bit easier to get started with our tracking script. But also Unomi itself comes with a very basic tracking script. So it's not really a deal breaker if you want to really do this yourself. In the Google Analytics module, there is the ability to send profile data with tokens. So if you expose them like from within Drupal towards your JavaScript, then you're able to send them from within the JavaScript context to Unomi. Unomi is a client-side tracking application similar to Google Analytics. So if this works with Google Analytics, then yes, it should work with Unomi. The only tricky part is you have to still write the integration to make sure that these profile data from within Drupal actually get to the right profile fields in Unomi. I left a section all the way at the end for advanced. So if people want to talk after the session about these advanced cases, I'm very happy to dig in and help you a bit in understanding how this works, okay? If anyone already has any kind of problem, let us know. Usually now I will walk around, look at your screen, but you know.
Yeah, and I don't see much people select. You can select the text from the slides if you want. It's easier. You don't have to type it.
I think because it's read-only, we won't see it. You can follow these steps later. This will keep working. The only tricky part, Chris, is that I don't know when I'm allowed to shut down the managed Unomi, because if I would like also have steps to set up Unomi in this session, this won't be finished in an hour. You need to get some inside information. Unomi is a Java application and it has an Elasticsearch database as a storage backend. Okay, so feel free, if you're already ready, to go to the next steps. You have access to the presentation, so you don't have to wait for us. But what we'll do now, well, if you have Umami somewhere in a container, like a very basic Drupal in DDEV, sure, you can do so. Like this stuff, these 4 modules, it's the only thing we're going to do with Drupal. Like, we're not going to touch any other codes or any other things. We're not creating custom codes. That's as far as we're gonna go. Okay. Yes, there is a Unomi container. Somewhere it's out there.
I think I even have it on my GitHub.
Yeah. Okay. Now, I'm going to go to step 2, but just like chat with us if you're not able to follow or if you have any questions. Okay. It's kind of tricky for me to see how far you're at. But we're going to uninstall the internal page cache module. Now, why are we going to do this? Is because the Unomi module won't work or won't have the cache context available to it with the internal page cache module. Now, why is that? It's because the tracking script that we're going to use in a bit from the managed Unomi of Dropsolid places a cookie. The cookie has the segment names in it. And if we want Drupal to pick up the cookie as a cache context, we have to disable the internal page cache module and enable the dynamic page cache module. Running Unomi behind Varnish is not problematic, but enabling internal page cache is problematic because then the cookie cache context won't be parsed. And so that's what we're going to do. So let's take a look here. So internal page cache, uninstall. You can leave the dynamic page cache on. That's totally fine. Big pipe works. That's all fine. The internal page cache basically is like a mini varnish in Drupal itself. It caches pages based on the URL. And that's not what we want. We want to have dynamic pages based on specific contexts. So that's why we have to disable it. If we then continue, we're going to enable drop solid personalization, Mautic paragraph, and asset injector. Now, this drop solid personalization is just a plugin on top of the Unomi module. And so if we go to extend to this list, you will see that you have the Unomi module, which is a very basic Unomi module that then works on a local Unomi. For this workshop, we're going to use the drop solid personalization module because we actually set up for this workshop and managed Unomi with a different kind of authentication. Okay, so I enable the drop solid personalization integration, but I'm also going to enable the maltik paragraph. What I'm also going to enable is the asset injector. This is purely for the workshop. This asset injector, normally in production websites, people use something like Google Tag Manager. But because I didn't want you to set up all kinds of separate Google Tag Managers, we're just going to inject the JavaScript to the head section within Drupal itself. Okay. The cookies, there's an issue in the Unomi module to customize the cookie name. And in most cases, for example, on Acquia or on the Drop Solid platform, I think also on the Amazon platform, there is a specific cookie name that allows then Varnish to vary on. So, for example, at the Drop Solid hosting platform, this is called ds_vary_something. I'm pretty sure Pantheon and Fastly have something similar as well. I don't know all of the intrinsic details of all these hosting platforms. Okay, so let's enable that. And while we wait, we are almost at step 3. I still see 40 people following, so I'm assuming that you're all still chugging along. Okay, so now add our tracking scripts. There's an instruction here
Nick, maybe
where you can actually log in to the Drop Solid platform to find the tracking script. But just to make it easier for everybody, I don't require you to have an account at our Drop Solid platform. I'm just going to show you how that looks like. And so we have a UI that then has the tracking script that you can download with or inject, and it has the specific UUID. But in this case, the tracking script is also available here. If you have a local Unomi, I'm just going to show you the manual. So this is the manual of Unomi. It's massively long. And let me see where I have it here. Somewhere in this massive documentation, there is actually a script that comes with the Unomi itself. Yeah, I don't know by heart where it exactly is, but it's somewhere out there. The best thing is if you run this locally, that you take a look at their sample script and actually make it a bit your own, because usually you want to add some default parameters into the customer data platform. The Unomi module doesn't manage this tracking script because this is very, very specific to the exact solution that you're trying to build. And in Google Analytics, obviously this is managed by Google, but in this case, yeah, it really depends on what you're actually trying to track. The Drop Solid tracking script tracks a whole bunch of things by default, and I'll show you that once it's in there. so you can see what it actually tracks and what it actually sends. The data structure of Unomi works in 3 layers. We have events, we have sessions, and there's profiles. Everything always starts with an event. An event is linked to a session, so then the aggregate comes to the session, and then the aggregate of all the sessions, or the last value, dependent on what specific logic you have in Unomi, goes into the profile. Okay. Maybe to just give you also like a UI view of what then would be in Unomi. And if some of you have already the script enabled, we will see that someone from Toronto already has this script enabled. Let's see where this person is. I have to zoom out a bit. I'm not entirely sure if the person of Toronto is visible here, but in any case, it could be visible dependent on what you allow. But here you can see like what is actually being visited. And then this is the profiles. We can also just see the events. What you're seeing here is purely a UI interface, but we're going straight to the Elasticsearch of Unomi. So you can see there's some people here that visit the website where they clicked on, etc., etc. But there's a lot more. Okay, once you have that script, you can add it in the JS injector, and now we're just mimicking the Google Tag Manager functionality. Yeah, so this is purely for the workshop. Don't do this in production. Eh? This is bad practice. We have a platform, a SaaS platform, Michael, that has a UI to look into Unomi and also to create the segments with a UI. I know that there's also an open source Python, I think it's a Python application out there, which is a local application that also is able to look into Unomi itself. This open source community is actually only starting out, and lots of things are actually happening really, really fast. DropSolid chose to actually have the interface on our website to make it easy, but maybe dependent on how far we actually get with the module, it could be that like the basic functionality also gets into Drupal. Also may be interesting for the people here in the session to know, there was a Google Summer of Code applicant that wanted to work on the Unomi module, on the one that you just installed. Google didn't choose for Drupal this year, so they didn't sponsor, but DropSolid said, we'll sponsor you anyway. So this person from India is going to work 2 months full-time just on the Unomi module right now. We're thinking of integrating it with smart segments or smart content, but if you have any kind of remark, just please leave it in the issue queue. It's going to be very, very active in the next coming 2 months. Okay, so if you are here, and please follow all these steps. We're going to add the script into the injector. And here we're going to do something special as well. Again, if you're not following, please let us know. I'm very, very happy to take a couple steps back if you're not following what's happening. But what we're doing here is that we're adding custom information to our customer data platform based on data within the client-side information. So if you're able to read some JavaScript, you can see that we're reading out the URL and we're reading out the UTM campaign and the UTM source from the page. So please also add this into your asset injector. Okay, and in that way, and let me also do all of those steps for you. So do this configuration. going to put them all in a single one, just for sake of simplicity. Okay. Okay. That doesn't really matter much, but I'll save it. Okay. If I now go back to my site, and maybe I'll go to incognito. It's a bit easier. Okay. So now we have the website, and let's take a look what happens in our network tab. Okay. So I clicked on give it a go and grow your own herbs, or I'm selecting this. And you can see that the request actually goes into Apache Unomi, on the managed Apache Unomi. And if you go to the preview tab, this might be a bit small, you can see what actually comes back. The response here is the exact response of what Apache Unomi would send back when you're sending an event. So you can see there's consent management. You can see that the consent was granted. We have profile properties. And this gets interesting now. Is this big enough for people to read? Okay. So we can see the last session started a minute ago. I'm in incognito, so that's normal. It's a new profile. The first visit was here, and then the last visit was at this timestamp. The interesting part, I'm in incognito, so somehow I think Google says, oh, you're in Switzerland. I'm in Ghent, by the way, so it's normal that you're seeing this. This is a functionality that you can enable in Apache Unomi. You have to look into the dark corners of the documentation, but once you find out that you can add a max-mind database in Unomi, all of this location transformation from IP to location is natively supported by Apache Unomi. Okay, so you can get lat long, there's user agents, and etc. Now, there's a couple of other interesting items that we see here. So in event data, and this is something that the Drop-Solid tracking script adds, which is not enabled by default or not in the open source, but you could write this yourself pretty easily, is that you can see that the value that I selected is actually being sent to our customer profile. So now we know that this person clicked on this. We know the context where this person clicked. So this is somewhat of a combination of Hotjar and location information. So you can see we're actually capturing all that information to then do data analysis on it, either on location basis, maybe on data analysis based on what they click on, dependent on maybe it's technical, maybe it's not. But you can see there's a lot more that is happening here. Also, and this gets a bit creepy, you can see the browser information, but all the cookie names, not the values. Be careful, do not send cookie values along to Apache Unomi. That goes a bit too far. You can see like what's available. What is my memory? What's my screen size? So you can actually build your segments that way. Okay, so far so good. Yes, the Mautic username and login is admin/Mautic. Feel free to continue, okay? Now, I'm very happy that you actually got to that step. You can actually now add Mautic. So Martik is a marketing automation software, and it also allows you to track just page views, but then also have forms and have automated email flows and et cetera, et cetera. It's a session on its own. But what we're going to do is we're going to add the tracking script of Martik, the managed Martik that we have set up. So let me see here. Injector, Martik. Okay. So now we're tracking things in Martik. Okay. So let me refresh. And let's go to the Mautic application. I'm not entirely sure how the Mautic will like behave if 30 people will log in at the same time. But if we take a look here, we can see that there's already like some people that have the Mautic script enabled. We have someone from this IP, 174, that actually clicked on home Drupal and a couple of times. And then also from this IP, with give it a go and grow your own herbs, some page. So there's a couple of people already in our marketing automation database. Obviously, we don't know who this person is. So let's try to change that. If we then go further, we have all the scripts enabled. Let's try to have the Mautic and the Unomi configured. So I'm going to, or maybe Frederik, for the sake of time, can you maybe share the client ID and secret from the Mautic application in the chat? Okay.
I'm taking yours.
Configure Mautic. And why we're going to configure Mautic and Drupal is that then we actually can get the forms that are created in Mautic in Drupal. Now, what are forms? Forms are here in the components. We see there's like a newsletter subscription form, very, very similar to like a MailChimp form or a web form, just to ask an email address from a specific person. Okay, so let's take a look at Mautic. Okay, and I'm going to fill this in. I think I have to leave this empty. Yeah. And then go out. Okay. Okay. You can actually also go from web form to Mautic. I'm not entirely sure if that integration works out of the box, but it's not that interesting because your content editor, or maybe the marketeer, needs to be in full control. The tricky part about web form, and mainly in a multilingual environment, it's a lot easier for the marketeer to have full control within Mautic about their funnels and about their inbound traffic, and then just enable these or embed these forms in Drupal itself. But it's okay if you go from web form to Mautic. So let's save this information. Okay, so we have to log in to enable the authentication. And perfect, we are connected. It's okay if you use web form, no problem. So we're now connected, and we're going to do the same with Unomi. Okay. There's instructions here to go to our platform. For the sake of time, if you want, you can leave your email address, and Frederik Waters will give you access to the interface of Unomi, but you don't need to. Okay, so nothing enforced, but there will be a couple of segments. If you're not following this, if you leave your email address, we'll add you, and you can actually play around in the interface that it's managed by Dropsolid. Just going to show you how that looks like. The interface is interacting directly with the Unomi API. Just to know, there's nothing special that we're doing here other than just visualizing what Apache Unomi is capable of doing. We added a couple of segments here, and you can see here that we added properties which say there's a bunch of properties that we have. And what we are configuring now is a segment that can detect if a specific campaign was your inbound channel. So imagine you came in from an Instagram ad or a LinkedIn ad, which has a query parameter UTM campaign called Campaign of Nick. And I'm going to show you how that looks like. So imagine there is this recipe called super easy vegetarian pasta bake, whatever. In most cases, if you come from Facebook or LinkedIn, you will have something like that. Campaign of Nick, the marketeer, will know, okay, this is how I can detect in Google Analytics if someone came in from those campaigns. So that's what we did here. What you can also do, if you have all these properties, is to have segments based on the size of your screen. You can have segments based on if you're on a specific domain. You have segments based on specific city or a country. So there's a lot of things that you then can do to create segments. For this exercise, we're going to just use the UTM parameter and the integration that we created for that. Okay. So we created that campaign, or we created that segment, and now we're going to configure the Unomi application in Drupal. Okay, so let's go to the configuration. Very, very similar as to Mautic. Let's go to Unomi. I choose for Drupal platform. If you have a local Unomi, you can choose for basic authentication, because that's the non-managed Unomi, which you just run locally. If you do Drupal platform and you follow the presentation, you will see that you can fill in these values. Okay, and then the port 443. Okay, and client ID. This should be secrets, but they're actually in the presentation. So otherwise, this would be rather hard. And then we click on Save Configuration. And if all goes well, we saved it, and we're now connected with Unomi. Great. Are people still following, or did I lose everybody, and do I just continue? Hopefully, people are still following, and I'm able to continue as well. Okay. Perfect. So one thing which is a bug in the Unomi module, and that's what's being fixed on right now by the person that is doing Google Summer of Code. We only have to clear the caches once because otherwise it didn't come in. This will be fixed in one of the future releases.
I have a small question, Nick.
Sure.
I'm but I have a question. Drupal marketeer. Which marketeer role do I have to choose? So I have DrupalCon demo as an organization. And
you have to do this one. So you have the
DrupalCon demo.
DrupalCon demo, and here you have to add them. So here.
Ah, okay.
Okay.
Yes.
So if we then clear our caches, there's no devil enabled on this website, so I actually have to go to the old school way of doing things. Clear our caches. Okay. And then we are at the last step. What we're doing, or maybe Felix, if you can help Elaine. So what we're going to do in step 6 is we're going to create a block which actually embeds a Mautic form. We're only going to show it to people that came in from a specific campaign. Okay. So I'm going to the structure block. Some people, like, you could do this with Layout Builder, you could do this with paragraphs, but neither of them are actually enabled here in the demo. I know there's Layout Builder here, but you still need a patch to make that conditionally visible. I can talk about that more in the advanced section, or maybe in a Q&A afterwards. But right now, here in the content piece, we're going to add a custom block, which is a Mautic block, and we're going to give it a title. subscribe to our Chili newsletter. Okay, and description, newsletter full of chili sauces. And here we can actually do an autocomplete, and we can find our Chili newsletter subscription form. Okay. Now here we have also a Unomi segment selection, and I want this form to only be shown to people that came in from an inbound campaign, which was the UTM parameter campaign of Nick. Okay, so let's save this. And then if we go back to our content, let's take a look at maybe a recipe here, salsa de chili. Okay. Let me see if this actually shows. Oh, now I'm in Spanish. Do I have English ones?
Nick, I'm sorry, but I don't have the permission to add people, it seems.
Okay. Well, just follow along right now. Leave your email addresses, and maybe we can actually go stay in this session for those that actually want to dig a bit deeper. It's a virtual room, so normally people will stay. Let's take a look at our block. Place block, and here subscribe to our newsletter. Okay, I actually didn't place the block, but now it's here under main, and we should see it in articles or anywhere else. Okay, so if we refresh this page, we can see we embedded now the Mautic form. Okay, this doesn't look like much, but let me just show you what is actually happening. So let's go to some recipe somewhere. It actually shows on all pages, and we see that I'm actually seeing this newsletter. Now, if we mimic the behavior, so imagine I actually come in from somewhere, and I'm coming in from the campaign of Eric, and I click on view recipe somewhere. I shouldn't see the form. Sometimes it takes just a little snip second, but you can see the form actually disappeared. I went a bit too quick locally, but that's okay. You see the form is not here. How do we know if the form actually appears with the correct segment? There is a helper. There's a helper script or a helper Chrome extension that can give you the information about the customer data platform. Now, let's see if we can actually make the snippet appear again. So the campaign of Nick. Let's click around some articles, see if we can view it. And you can see the form actually appeared again. So you're not being added to a Drupal site, you're being added to the Drupal platform that helps you play around with the Unomi module. So this was a very short way of actually getting the form shown or not shown. This is a proof of concept. So if you want to know more, let me know maybe afterwards. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to make myself known. So I fill it in. It says, thank you for subscribing. And let's see what happens now. If I go to contacts, you can see that I filled in my email address. And you can see all the pages that I visited, and you have full Mautic potential, full Mautic capability for the people that actually wanted to show you a form. Normally, in personalization cases, you're not doing this with forms. You're doing this with specific titles, specific images, maybe specific paragraphs or specific blocks on the page. this is, again, proof of concept for that. So let's take a step back. So we placed the block, we configured it, we actually got the form from Mautic, we made sure that it only showed 2 specific campaigns, and we tested it. So we logged out of everything, we navigated to this link, we navigated to a recipe, we saw the form, Drupal responded correctly to the cache context, and showed the right rendering. Okay, we saw also in Mautic that the form was filled in. We saw the history of that person in Mautic, and we can then start the whole bunch of journeys of marketing automation. If you want to know more, there's MautiCon in a couple of weeks to really get to the power of Mautic. But we connected all of these applications right now in a single hour without you really needing any proprietary system other than managed Unomi and maybe managed Mautic, but that doesn't really mean too much. So that's a bit to recap. We only had an hour, so I tried to cram as much as possible in that hour. I apologize if it went a bit too fast. So hopefully that was useful. In the presentation, and I'm happy to have some Q&As if you have, there's advanced cases. There's geolocation, there's cross-device detection, so you can actually have Unomi merge profiles because you identify that the same person opened up the newsletter from Mautic on the website, but also maybe filled in his email or her email address on the mobile phone or on another laptop. Then Unomi is able to merge these profiles together and have it as a single person. If you want to see a little demo about the geolocation or localization, there's also a video in the presentation. And in closing, we now actually merge these 3 technologies together with all these tools. And this is a bit about Dropsolid. If you want to know more about what we do, how we can help you, in the EU DrupalCons, we're main sponsor. In the US, we're not that big yet, but we have a lot of ambition. And hopefully, maybe we can help you and help us get there. Okay. If you have any questions, drop me, find me at Slack, find me here. You can certainly stay here for a little while and have a Q&A. And otherwise, email us, find us, and yeah, let us know. Okay. Thank you, everybody.
I think there are a few people that are maybe interested in having an account on the platform.
Sure. So maybe let me know your email address.
Max was interested, certainly, and Mikkel Mitchell was also interested, I think. So I think maybe let's add those, and then we can they can experiment on their own time.
Can you find the email addresses somewhere?
Yes, I have them. I'll send you on Slack if that's good for you.
Yeah, you'll get an invite, and then you'll be able to explore with the Unomi. Slack is very slow. I'm going to stop the screen share. Okay. I'll stay here for like another 10 minutes. If you have any other questions, feel free. While I'm adding the people that actually wanted to have an account. So those 2 should have received an account.
Elaine, can you resend it to me? Because I have a private message of you, but I didn't receive your email address.
And also, Elaine, you had a question. How does this compare to Acquia Lift? It's something that I didn't mention, but I was one of the engineers at the Acquia Lift product. It was my previous employer, Acquia. How does this compare? It takes a very different approach. Acquia Lift, or at least when I was still there, required that your content is synchronized to something which is called Content Hub, or at least to an external space, so that then using AJAX calls or JavaScript, it gets injected in your site again. In this case, we're making use of the power of the cache contexts of Drupal itself to make sure that the content actually stays within Drupal, and that the whole ecosystem is actually a bit simpler. So Acquia Lift is most likely great for really big cases, but if you are looking for an easier start, but with very similar functionality, very similar power, then Unomi is a very good alternative. Also, the Unomi is open. It's also open source. So for governments, and this is something why in Europe this is a very different case, is very interesting. It's not a proprietary data set. It's not a proprietary system, so you could set it up yourself if you really would need to for specific compliancy reasons. And so that's, I think, one of the key differences between those two. And most likely I can wrestle with Chris now about Content Hub, and I know he was very much involved, so happy to talk to you, Chris, about that. But this doesn't involve anything about content synchronization to external sources. Okay. This works with the GDPR, not the RP. I'm not sure what the RP is, but I'm assuming that you are mentioning GDPR. And you can see how that works on the website of DropSolid. Okay, so what we do is we have the EU cookie compliance module, which is then I need to disable the incognito. Yeah, so if you go to the website of DrupSolid, you can see something like this, which is a cookie pop-up. And it doesn't load in any scripts as long as you don't give your consent. So it's exactly the same as Google Analytics or any other tracking script. You shouldn't load in the tracking script if you don't have any consent. As soon as you store or have the consent, you can actually store it in local storage or anywhere else, and then send it along with the consent management, so you can store the date and time that a specific profile or person made their consent. This is very important on a legal case, because you need to know if someone protests that he or she didn't give consent for tracking. You need to prove when and where he or she actually did so. And in many cases, or in many cookie compliancy solutions, or certainly with basic EU cookie compliance or other banners, this is not the case. So if you want to be GDPR compliant, actually having a customer data platform is actually a benefit instead of a negative downside. You don't need to personalize it. You don't need to collect the information, but consent management is important. Unomi creates first-party cookies, Max. That's true. So it's not placing anything on the DrupSolid domain. In our case, it's only on the domain that your website is looking at. Or is located at. And the patch for making Mautic paras work with Layout Builder is more the patch about making personalization work with Layout Builder. And I need to take a look. Layout Builder, what is it? I'm going to find out, but there's a patch that actually has like conditions. Here, this one.
But Nick, isn't there also like a change somewhere where we can use Mautic forms in blocks?
Yeah, that's fine. But the problem with the layout builder is the visibility controls. This patch, it works great. And you need it if you want layout builder to respond on the cache contexts. I don't know, Chris, if you can provide more information in the chat. This is a massive issue. I'm not entirely sure where it's at right now. but the Unomi controls that you saw before, so I'll show it here in the block. So somewhere, yeah, I'm logged out, doesn't really matter. But the conditions are actually part of the visibility conditions. Also, the Unomi module uses these conditions. So if conditions work with dispatch in Layout Builder, then also personalization works with Layout Builder out of the box using any kind of condition, including the Unomi condition. Hopefully that makes sense for the people that are still here. And Chris, that would be great if this issue gets committed at some point. But for now, we're actually adding it as a patch to the projects that need this. That's fine. I'll keep following it. And I asked Sventel to help us move it forward. Okay. I think that was about it for all the questions. I'm so happy there's still like 35 eyes looking just at us while actually we're wrapping it up. So please give us some feedback in the link that was shared earlier. Maybe please also reach out on Twitter if you enjoyed this workshop. It would really help also to promote this way of working. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.